This is a production of the Gold Arrow Podcast Network. Hello and welcome to the Gold Arrow Camp Podcast, a podcast for friends of Gold Arrow Camp. Throughout the year, we join you to bring your day some of what makes Gold Arrow special. Our goal is to help you have fun, make friends, and grow throughout the year, not just when you're at GAC. Since we can't get together in real life, we gather here around the virtual campfire. Now, this is maybe a change if you subscribe to Wadda Day, our daily podcast from the summer. Today we swap back to our original podcast, the POG-Cast. If you don't get the joke, one of our favorite drinks at camp is passion orange guava juice, which we call POG. And so this is the POG-Cast. This podcast is longer than Wadda Day and it comes out less often. Each episode is a longer interview with a staff member or maybe a camp parent, once in a while a camper. We also have some of your favorite parts of morning assembly like joke of the day and wows and a friendship tip. So welcome back to the podcast. Today we're thrilled. We've got Gold Arrow's newest director. It's Cheerio. My name is Soy, and I'm a director here at Gold Arrow Camp, and I'm also the host of the Gold Arrow Camp podcast. And today our very special guest is Gold Arrow's newest year-round employee, our newest assistant director, Cheerio. The last time Cheerio was on the show was way back in episode 8 of the POG-Cast. She came on, she called in from her teaching job in Florida and talked about what we called the happiness hurricane. But today she doesn't have to call in. She's joining us right here in the studio at the Gold Arrow Camp World Headquarters. Say hello to Cheerio. Oh, welcome to the podcast. It's Cheerio.
Thank you, Soy.
Welcome back. I'm so happy you're here. You've been on the podcast before.
I have.
I actually wrote down when you were on. You were on in 2017. You were our 8th guest ever. It's Cheerio. So a lot of people know you. Like if people have been to camp, they know Cheerio, Cheerio. But maybe people are listening who haven't ever been to camp. They don't know who you are. So kind of short story, who are you and what do you do for camp?
So I'm Cheerio. I've worked at camp for 11 years and I'm now an assistant director, which just means I help out anybody who needs it. Talk to parents and assist campers and counselors and help with hiring. And it's a fun adventure.
It is a fun adventure. So before you came to work for camp full-time, what did you do?
I was a teacher. I taught students with intellectual disabilities. I taught kindergarten and I taught second grade.
Wow. Like, what was your favorite age group to teach?
I always say second grade was my favorite grade because the students are independent, but they're so much fun. So.
See, I taught high school and you're like kindergarten, second grade. I'm like, no, not where I'm comfortable at all. I'm like, are they 14? I can deal with a 14-year-old. Real comfortable there. How do you think your teaching career kind of cross-pollinated with camp? Because I know that you came and worked at camp before you were even a teacher. Like you worked at camp when you were in college. So how did those two things kind of blend together once you got to the classroom?
I do think it's interesting that part of the reason I came to camp was because I had summers free and everybody else was doing internships and internships weren't helpful for me as a future teacher. So I was like, well, what would future teachers be doing? And I thought they would do what kids are doing. So what are kids doing? They're going to summer camp. So I should go to summer camp.
So how did you end up, because you're from Indiana, like I'm from Indiana,
yeah,
because the Indiana squad represents.
Yes.
How did you end up all the way on the West Coast at a camp in California, coming out of like a teacher prep program in Indiana, thinking, where are kids going?
Yes. I had a family friend who came to camp several years ago named Bulldog.
Okay.
So shout out to Bulldog, who told me to look no further than Gold Arrow Camp. So that's what I tell everybody else now.
So, look no further. I've solved your problem.
Yes.
So you came to camp and then you would go back to school and then you got a teaching job. How did like what you had learned at camp, how did that influence how you ran your classroom?
I learned so much from camp and being a counselor about how the relationship is the most important thing first, and then you can get to the curriculum. So I feel like it helped me bring a lot of energy to my classroom and made me focus on the students and what they actually need in order to be able to do my job as a teacher.
It's really good. Connection. We talk about connection before correction, but you're talking about connection before
Curriculum.
anything.
Yes.
Connection before curriculum.
Yes.
Connection.
Yeah.
I agree for what it's worth. I think all of it is like connection based. Like you can't do anything at all really without having a connection with somebody first, I think. But
I agree.
Okay. So we both agree, so it must be true. How do you think, there's a lot of talk about school reform and how we can make schools better and how we can improve student performance. Obviously, we both believe connection is the key to that. How else do you think schools could change to like incorporate the lessons from camp to make schools more effective?
Wow. That's a big question.
We're solving all of the world's problems right here on this little humble podcast, Cheerio.
I definitely think, I don't know that I have specific ideas, but just that, all kids deserve the same amazing education and relationship with their teacher or whoever else at their school. So I guess I just would say equity and equality, however you can make that happen. And then training for teachers that helps them really like live into the strengths that they have and bring that to their own classroom, because I think when they're doing that, then they're able to do that for their students. And I don't know how that all works out with like raising scores and all that stuff, but
well, yeah, and I'm not convinced that raising scores is indicative of better education, but
agreed.
Huh. It's almost like we work at a place where there aren't tests and kids can just better themselves and like live in community. It's wild.
It is wild.
All right. We obviously both love camp. What's your absolute favorite thing about camp?
My favorite thing about camp is seeing campers that didn't know each other before grow in different ways, including in their friendships with each other and also when they set goals and achieve them in whatever way that is, usually at activities, but in other areas as well. It's just really fun to see like that 2 weeks can really make a big impact for one kid.
It's true. I was talking with Trips yesterday, who's a group counselor, and I asked her, because she talked about goal setting, like, okay, so what do you think percentage-wise of your campers over the summer achieve their goals? And she's like, oh, it's 100%. And
that's amazing.
Like, really? And she's like, yeah, I mean, some kids might change the goal once they participate in something. They might think, oh, I thought I was going to be a great wakeboarder. It turns out maybe I should learn to kneeboard first. But she said that, like, that's a big part of being a group counselor is, like, talking about goals and helping kids with goals. And I thought it was really cool that kids can kind of actualize, oh, the goal I set wasn't so accurate. Maybe I should revise that. And I think, like, often societally we don't give kids enough credit for being self-aware.
Totally.
And so I was really refreshed to hear that from her. And she's going into education too. So when she gets a teaching credential, we'll all sit around and we'll solve all the problems.
Awesome.
I'm sure it'll be super easy. So this year, for the first year in your 11 years and the first year of my 12 years, you and I shared an office at camp.
Yes, we
along
did.
with, there's a third person, the director of parent and camper communication. Chelster sits kind of behind us. So we share one desk and Chelster's at the other desk. So let's be honest with the people who listen to the podcast. What's the best part about sharing an office with me?
The best part about sharing an office with Soy, there's two things. It would have to be how much he makes you laugh and the funny noises that he produces.
I'm not a quiet worker. It's fair. And sometimes I do make little noises. Okay, so I try and limit my noises when you are... Yeah. Listen, I'm trying to be me, but when you're maybe on the phone with a parent, I try and limit the noises. Because you do talk to parents, and I talk to parents, and Chelsea talks to parents. If you had to give a piece of advice to parents who are sending their kids to camp maybe for the first time, what advice would you have for them?
I think my advice would be, I know it's impossible, but try not to worry and just send them off with really with a lot of excitement and send them lots of letters and all those things, but know that they're having a great time.
Yeah, I think it's hard to remember because like we work at camp and in camping. And so for me, it's a totally natural thing. Well, yeah, you send your kids to camp, but you forget that like for parents who maybe went to camp, but that was years ago. Or maybe they're going because somebody said, hey, you should send your kids to camp, and they never even went to camp. Like,
Right.
it is a huge deal to, like, put your kid on the bus and send them to the mountains for 2 weeks.
It's a long time.
and to people that maybe you've met in person if you came to, like, a GAC event, but probably just talked to us on the phone, and we're just saying, trust us.
Yeah.
And I know it's a huge deal to be able to say to parents, no, trust us. And I have to remind myself, yes, like, that's a big deal to just let your child go. So this year, one of the things you brought to our office that we've never done before that I thought was really cool was you kind of looked at maybe the way some of our campers struggle with impulse control or other things. And you did some research and you put together a sensory bin,
Yes.
which is sitting on a desk in the podcast studio right now. I'm staring at the sensory bin, podcasting, a notoriously visual medium. We'll maybe take a picture of this and put it up on the page where the podcast posts. But could you talk a little bit about what's in the sensory bin and how campers use the sensory bin and kind of what impacts you saw from it this year?
Definitely. So in the sensory bin, we have different things. We have some supplies to make breathing beads, which were a huge hit this summer that one of our trainers, Ginger, taught us all about. We have some Play-Doh, some stress balls of different types. Some stuff that I think the technical name is Floam, but it's I don't know. It's like a weird little foamy material.
It's kind of a foamy thing that you can make into shapes and you can squeeze, but it doesn't like burst. It's wild.
Yes, it is wild.
Big fan on this side of the desk.
And then we have some other things. These are all things I found that are supposed to be good for calming people down. So I have a few things that weren't used as often, but like we have some twistables and then some scented twistables, which are also very fun. Anyway, so we have this in our office for anybody, honestly, camper or staff member who just like, some people were like, hey, can I just have this like a stress ball? Like, it's just like nice to have in my pocket. I'm like, sure, go for it. And then, we also have a few books that are great for certain things. Like I have a book called Wilma Jean, the Worry Machine. And it's just about a little girl who worries. And
we have Soda Pop Head as well.
Oh, yeah.
Wherever Soda Pop Head is, it's in the box, which is maybe about people who have some trouble controlling their emotions when they get upset.
Yes. And then we have one called My Mouth is a Volcano. Anyway, there's a bunch of books, and they're just good for anybody who that might be like a harder thing for them to deal with. Like if you're a big worry person, then some campers identify with that, and that helps them feel like they're not the only one who worries. And all of the books give tactics on how to make that like easier for them.
Well, and I think like watching it in action and seeing campers deal with it, because again, my background is older kids, and so like you don't see a ton of sensory boxes at the high school level, and so watching kids like manipulate something as simple as like a stress ball or a piece of Play-Doh when they're upset. And I mean, we talked about parents trusting us, but there are some high stress things at camp, especially for kids on their first time. You're away from home. It's why camp is so good, right? It builds confidence. It gives them that exposure. But like, how do you deal with that stress in a healthy way? Did you think it was successful?
I definitely think it was successful. It's like that quote that's like, if I made one person's life better or something like that. I feel like if it worked for at least one kid, then it was helpful. And it definitely worked for several kids and even staff members. Sometimes they would just come in and just start like playing with it, and then I'd be like, I feel great now, thanks.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not saying I dug in the sensory bin, but there were some days where I had to go to the sensory bin. So
it's awesome.
And it's like I'm old enough that I should be able to process that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and sometimes
I think
it's
everybody
like,
feels
I
calmer.
just
It's
needed
like
something
everybody
to
has
squeeze
their
for
own
3
things
minutes,
that
and then suddenly
help them
your
calm
body
down.
goes,
Sometimes
okay,
it's going on a
we
walk
can
or doing
process
other
this, we can
things,
deal with
but
this.
sometimes just having like a little tool, like even for full grown, like 80-year-old adults,
absolutely.
I think everyone can find something that helps them.
100%. Yeah, for sure.
Like 80-year-old adults.
Oh, absolutely.
I think everyone can find something that helps them.
100%
I think
agree.
we should put a video of how to make breathing beads.
Oh.
So that's the sensory bin. We'll put a picture of that up.
great
I
idea.
think, you know what else I think we should do, Cheerio? I think we should put a video up of how to make breathing beads, because they were a tremendous success. I agree with you. And I think that's a good resource. So we're going to do that. We'll put that on the page as well. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be everywhere. Look for it. When this hits your ears, it'll already be out there. All right, Cheerio, you've given us a ton of your valuable time. Now it's time to wrap things up. The speed round. 5 questions we ask absolutely everybody who comes on the podcast. Here they go. I'm going to go back and listen to your old answers and see if they've changed at all. Your favorite camp song?
My favorite camp song is the hippopotamus song.
What would make a hippopotamus smile? That's a good
Yeah.
song. Favorite item on the salad bar?
Olives. They are so good.
I don't mind an olive. I don't know that I ever would have made it top of my list, but it takes all kinds to make the world go round. Around the campfire, mallows or popcorn?
Mallows.
Solid choice. All-time favorite lip balm flavor?
I think s'mores.
Oh, the campfire s'mores one.
Yes.
The special promo. You couldn't get it at camp. You
Yes.
could only get it at like runners events or GAC parties.
Yes.
We had that one custom made. It was tremendously good. And then finally, Cheerio, what's your real name?
It's
We're all out of time. We had you on and we ran out of time again. It's like every time I have you on, we run out of time before we get to know your real name. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Cheerio.
Thank you for having me.
Joke of the cast, joke of the cast. 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 Joke of the cast. Do you guys know what's made out of metal and sounds like Tom Jones? Trombones. Get it? Trombones. At camp, we love making friends, but we know it's harder to make friends at home. That's why we bring you this, the Friendship Tip of the Week. You know, one of the most stressful parts about making friends is meeting new people. So at camp, we made that easier. We came up with an acronym to help us when we meet new people. It's 5 simple steps that we can do when we meet somebody new that immediately makes everybody more comfortable and makes it easier to start making new friends. So that acronym is WESTI. That's WESTI, and here's what it stands for. When you meet somebody new, W, give them that nice warm smile. E, look into their eyes. Make good eye contact. S, shake their hand. Could be a high five, could be a fist bump, something along those lines. A little bit of formal contact. T, tell them who you are and how you feel. So you want to tell them, hey, my name is Soy, and I'm really happy to meet you. Hey, my name is Soy, and I'm a little bit nervous that we're here at camp. How are you feeling? And then I is introduce them to other people. So if you know someone else who's there, perhaps this is someone who's just entered your classroom for the first time or is just getting off the bus at camp. You can say, hi, I'm Soy. It's nice to meet you. I'm really excited you're here. Hey, this is Cheerio. She works here too. I'm sure she'd love to meet you. And then those people can start to talk. And before you know it, you have a circle of people around you who know each other and can start to know each other better. And you can start to become friends. So that's what we suggest. Friendship tip of the week. Greet people with Westy. And now it's time for some words of inspiration around here. We call those GACspirations. You can find them every Friday on our social media channels. Here's a little one from one of our favorites, John Muir. Going to the mountains is going home. At morning assembly, one of our favorite games, and a game that we can play at home, is something we call Stat of the Day. So, Tank, hit me with that Stat of the Day jingle.
Stat of the day, dabba-dooba-doo, stat of the day, dat of the day. Here comes that what? Stat of the day, bop.
So the way Stat of the Day works is this. At camp, we ask a question every day. It's like, how many sailboats does camp own? And then cabins think all day and they count and they try and figure out and they submit it. And the next morning at morning assembly, we decide who was closest and we give them the Stat of the Day trophy, which they get to keep for the day. It's a high honor. It's incredible. The way it's going to work here is I'm going to read you a Stat of the Day question and you're going to send me an email to WOW, at goldarrowcamp.com. And the person who submits the closest guess will be the winner for Stat of the Day for this week on the podcast. And they will have eternal glory. Maybe we'll shout them out on our social media channels. So here it is. The first Stat of the Day podcast for the podcast. How many pennants did we order to send to campers when they enrolled? Again, when you enroll, you get a little felt pennant. It says GAC 2020. How many pennants did we order to send to campers when they enroll? Well, that does it. That's another Gold Arrow Camp POG-Cast in the books. All we have to do now is say goodbye and say some thank you. So here they are. Special thanks to Cheerio for coming on the show, being in studio to record because she works at our office now. That was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it. And thanks to you, the POG-Cast listener. We're thrilled that you're a part of our family. And we're thrilled that you listen. If you like the show, please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you don't like the show, send me an email. WOW, W-O-W, at goldarrowcamp.com. Let me know what you want to have on the show. We want the show to be as much about you as it is about us. As always, I'm Soy, and I'll save a marshmallow for you.